And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather video. This is our in-depth fields and features segment. Lots of features and fields to talk about. Yowzers, coronal mass ejections headed toward Earth. Will they end civilization? Well, we'll have to find out and see. Don't worry, folks, the sun's not going to kill you. When in doubt, blame mankind for your troubles. The sun is the provider of all life on the planet. And short of being on a spacecraft or doing polar flights all the time and getting irradiated by solar plasma, the sun's not going to kill you, folks. Although if civilization ends because the grid goes down, mankind might. Just putting it out there. Anyway, here's a little teaser as to what's to come. Some great imagery there from the Soho-Lascaux C3, Soho-Lascaux C2, and the SDO of 2 coronal mass ejections headed toward Earth, expected to arrive on March 31st. Starting early in the day, we can expect quite a day of geomagnetic unrest and storm conditions. Next, looking at Magneto hydrodynamic pressure at the moment. This is the last 4 hours surrounding Earth, and we see a little lull in the action here. There are some coronal hole high-speed winds out there also, possibly. So don't be surprised to see some upticks here that aren't the CMEs. Again, that's the last 4 hours. Magneto hydrodynamic pressure modeled in nanopascals by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. Next, ground magnetic perturbations, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. We looked at it from space. Here it is from the ground. Modeled in nanotesla. This is magnetic flux density. Like the last video, it is the last 4 hours, and things are quite calm here on planet Earth. Leave us a comment if you're viewing the video from a different galaxy, solar system, plane of existence, timeline, spaceship, planet, etc. Leave us a comment even if you're viewing from Earth or perhaps from space. KP index pegged like Will Smith at 2 for the past 9 hours. Geomagnetic calm conditions. Let's go to the real-time solar wind next to see some likely errors here. So these are likely errors. These could be cosmic ray strikes on the instruments. As you can see, there are error bars down here. When we see less than 1 proton per cubic centimeter, it's looking a little bit sketchy as we see a fairly solid signal here. The likelihood that this suddenly dropped off like this with no other signals to show is kind of low. I would tend to agree with those error bars. Current conditions are, after a significant ramping down here of the solar wind velocity, 416 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density about 6.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Pretty calm conditions there for the solar wind. Next, the GOES magnetometer. That's the past 3 days. Nothing too exciting happening there. Again, we may see an additional coronal hole wind stream show up here before the coronal mass ejection strike on March 31st. Next, the Heliosphere Current sheet. Earth is in a South Pole current sheet. It's fairly solid at the moment. We could see it change depending on activity associated with Sunspot 2978, which is in the southeast. Here's the line of sight view, and this area down here, this is Sunspot 2978. Depending on its degradation and or growth, and it has grown, actually there's some spots to its south now, it could pull a North Pole current sheet in Earth's way, in Earth's direction. Next, we'll look at coronal holes. Here's the line of sight coronal hole plot showing you the sun's B field. Those blue lines are the B field of the sun. North Pole-oriented coronal holes shown in green, South Pole-oriented coronal holes shown in red. And this coronal hole line of sight plot is one of the most important data sets that we can use to monitor these solar polar field reversal cycles. As you can see, the solar polar fields are in the process of reversing. And as we forecasted, we're seeing a major uptick here in both coronal holes and solar activity in general. Radial flux now all the way up to 156 solar flux units. Here's a look at the closest star in 193 angstroms. And you can see this quite well-defined South Pole-oriented coronal hole. Right here. Also, 2 large M-class flares happening during this video, producing 2 earthly directed coronal mass ejections. You can see radial waves rippling out of especially the first one there. Peak flux of that was around 11:30 yesterday, I believe. And let's move on to sunspots next. in our in-depth space weather video. So I've lost track of the names of sunspots, wolf number making it all the way up to 152. Yowzers. And once again, it looks absolutely nothing like a grand solar minimum. So you can see 12 named sunspot groups there, possibly showing up at the time, 12 areas of umbrae at least. Sunspot 2975, quite interesting indeed. 2976 also. We see a new sunspot possibly forming up here at this really high latitude here. Also, a new sunspot has formed to the south of Sunspot 2978. So just a ton of activity going on. Let's take a look at more imagery. This is 1700 angstroms, extreme ultraviolet light, not visible from the ground, only visible from space. This imagery from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO. And we've got some close-ups, as you're probably expecting by now if you're a regular viewer of the channel. By the way, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Take a moment to press like and subscribe. Press share. Tell your friends and foes about us. We're not so sure the algorithms are doing it. So here you can see new sunspots here south of Sunspot 2978. Those have just formed in the past 24 hours as the sunspot number jumps and jumps and jumps, years ahead of schedule and ahead of most people's forecasts. Here's this complex series of sunspots in the northern hemisphere. I'm not going to try to name them, but we've got a group here, a group here, a group here, a group here. They're all beta class. They're all capable of producing solar flares. And thanks to our YouTube viewers. If you didn't watch yesterday's video, entitled Earthbound CME plus Relativistic Particles, perhaps check it out. Here's a teaser. One of the videos that we featured in that video. And we've got tons of content on the channel besides space weather videos, also meteorology content and other stuff. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers. To our YouTube subscribers, notice how we're getting 1,000 to 2,000 views per day on BitChute and less than 200 per day, typically on YouTube. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers once again. Thanks to our Twitch followers. We'll be streaming a couple videos live to Twitch today. There'll be at least one exclusive over there. Probably our Space Weather bonus feature segment, so check that out at twitch.tv/SmashOmash. It's just a fantastic live streaming platform. And here at the Smash News Network, at least busted name in news, we just love it. So we use it on the regs. Twitch.tv/SmashOmash. Please visit our homepage, support the channel that way. With your clicks. We've got a permanent invite to our Discord chat. We'll be using that for future live streams to feature viewer commentary, voice chat, even video chat, perhaps, if you'd like to appear on the channel. SmashOmash.com. You can find links to our merch there as well as to the Smash Team. Thanks to Smash Team members. We put up all kinds of public posts yesterday that don't even require login, much less paid memberships. So check it out, SmashOmash.com/SmashTeam. If you want to support the channel, send us a few bucks through there. We also still are on Patreon, and there is a PayPal link and more. Let's take a look at some flaring. Got two major flares here to show you in a slowed down format. We've placed this at half speed for your viewing pleasure. Number 1, do not take a number 2 in your pants. Engage. Again, folks, the sun's not going to kill you, just in case you didn't hear me say it previously. Mankind might. The sun's not going to. We hope it doesn't cause any grid down conditions when this coronal mass ejection shows up on March 31st and into April 1st. Hopefully it won't be a foolish day to kick off the month of April. Here's an even slower format. We usually show 30 frames per second. That's 15 frames per second. This 171 angstroms video is only 10 frames per second, 1/3 the speed we normally show. Just spectacular imagery there. We're going to sit back and let that play through twice. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. press that share button if you agree that this is the best space weather channel on the internet. And thanks everybody for all of the comments we've been receiving in the past couple of days. We appreciate your kind words of support. We even appreciate your thumbs downs and and unkind words of whatever. After all, it is the internet, and I'm highly experienced. Remember, folks, we include the lyrics in The Smash of Hazard. Been in trouble in social media since before its existence, as I used to be a game server, game forum, and scrim team admin going back well into the mid-2000s. So here's the GOES X-ray flux, and you can see multiple M-class flares there. One just occurred while we were doing show prep. So just crazy amounts of activity. And you can see if you look at the 7-day chart, you can see this another rising uptick there of the X-ray profile of the closest star. It's been an exciting 24 hours here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Now, as we forecasted, we're seeing ongoing polar radio blackouts. So when the solar protons show up, particles cause these radio blackouts as they swirl around the polar regions. And that's what's going on there. That's why you see those red areas around the poles. Those are ongoing radio blackouts. So high-frequency radio there being transmitted into space instead of being sort of refracted back down to the surface where it normally is. Attenuation of the D layer of the ionosphere. And when you see it around the equator, that's caused by photons. When you see it around the poles, it's caused by protons. Know the difference. And our channel does have sort of a high school physics level of prerequisite requirement to largely understand the content. Let's just rock that through once more. Polar radio blackouts continuing as forecasted. And there you can see the proton flux coming off of its peaks. Peak proton flux was around 1440 yesterday. Those relativistic particles showed up in only about 20 minutes following that M-class flare, indicating that they were traveling about 33% the speed of light. Those are some fast protons. Next, a quick solar system forecast. Here's where stuff is now. Here's where things will be in a week as Mercury swings around to the far side of the closest star. Here's a star chart. It's from in-the-sky.org. Mine faces the south as I face the south, and so does my couch. Or if you prefer, sofa. And let's scroll back up. The blue line there is the galactic plane. The yellow line is the ecliptic. If you're up before dawn, you may see a lovely planetary pileup. Mars, Venus, Saturn, the Moon, and Jupiter, all rising ahead of the Sun. And last but not least, let's show some coronagraphs. Since again, we've got 2 coronal mass ejections headed toward the Earth. The best view for those is from stereo A. There's 1, there's 2. Let's bring it back. There's 1, and there's 2. Very similar CMEs in terms of both their trajectory and their general shape. Here they are from the LASCO C3. There's 1 and there's 2. Both halo ejections, at least part of it is a halo ejection. So expect some geomagnetic storms to start showing up on March 31st. Should be interesting. And if we're able to see the aurora in Pennsylvania, we will be delighted, super stoked, and we'll share that with you. At that point, as we shared this content with you at this point. And so to all of our viewers, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your attention to detail. Thanks for leaving comments. Thanks to the Smash team. May that solar wind be at your back as I sign off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news.